The 2018 Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series. Brought to you from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting. The Democratic race for Insurance Commissioner.
Good afternoon. I'm Candace Presley, Manager of Program Operations at WSB Radio and the Head of Community Affairs for Cox Media Group's Atlanta radio stations. Welcome to the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series, originating from the studios of Georgia Public Broadcasting here in Atlanta. This is the debate among the Democratic candidates for Insurance Commissioner. Let's meet the candidates. They are in alphabetical order. Janice Laws, she's the owner of J. Laws and Associates, a small specialty lines insurance agency. And Cindy Zeldin, she was the executive director of Georgians for a Healthy Future. That's a nonprofit that works to help all Georgians have access to quality and affordable health care. Now, let's meet our panel. Andy Miller is CEO and editor of Georgia Health News. Dave Williams reports on government for the Atlanta Business Chronicle. Now we get started. For the rules on today's debate, please visit the Atlanta Press Club website, atlantapressclub.org. To start the debate, each candidate will be asked one question by one of our panelists. Andy Miller, you get the very first question to Janice Laws.
Janice, Georgia has a really high uninsured rate. Somewhere about 13% of our citizens don't have health insurance. What would you like to do in order to lower that rate?
Thank you for the question. Georgia does have a very high rate of uninsured citizens. And as insurance commissioner, I will work to bring more insurance providers to our state. One of the issues that we do have in Georgia is we do not have sufficient providers. In some counties, we have no individual health insurance plans. And I believe that is unacceptable. We have had an insurance commissioner that has not worked for our consumers to ensure that we have the companies to provide the proper coverage for consumers. So as insurance commissioner, that will be my number one priority, is to bring more insurance carriers to our state, because that's something that the insurance commissioner can do.
Thank you very much. Dave Williams, now you get to ask a question to Cindy Zeldin.
You say on your website, Ms. Zeldin, that you led the push for a new Georgia law that holds insurance companies accountable for providing accurate information about doctors, hospitals, and other health care providers. What else needs to be done to improve transparency in the insurance industry?
Thank you, Dave, for that question, and thank you to the Atlanta Press Club for hosting that debate. And thank you for referencing that 2016 law, which does hold insurance companies accountable to a higher standard of accuracy for the information about providers that they give to the consumers who are enrolled in their health insurance plans. And this is so important because we've seen health insurance networks become more narrow over the last few years. And so as consumers have fewer doctors to choose from, it's very, very important that the information they get about the doctors in their plan be correct and up to date. But we do need to do more in the transparency area. We certainly need to provide better information about other features of health insurance plans. And we are seeing now more and more consumers who are facing out-of-network bills that they aren't expecting, called surprise billing, when somewhere along the process they see a provider that is out of their network that they weren't aware of, and they get a bill they weren't expecting. So we need to address that.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Ms. Zeldin. Now that's going to conclude the first portion of our debate. Now the candidates will ask a question to her opponent. Each candidate will have 30 seconds to ask the question, 60 seconds to respond, and then 30 seconds for a rebuttal. By random selection, Janice Laws, you may ask the first question.
Sure, thank you. Cindy, on your website, you claim to be an insurance expert. To my knowledge, you have never worked in the insurance industry, nor do you hold any professional insurance licenses. How do you qualify yourself as an insurance expert?
Thank you so much for asking that question. And I'm really proud of the work that I've done over the course of my career to represent Georgia consumers when it comes to their insurance needs. I'm proud to have served as the executive director of a statewide consumer advocacy group that built partnerships that enrolled Georgians in health insurance through the Affordable Care Act and that represented their needs at the state capitol. Through that work, I have been selected and served as a consumer representative to the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, where I provided input from the consumer perspective on regulations, model laws that make decisions that affect consumers. I've been appointed to a number of task forces and study committees over the years where my work has resulted in legislation and regulations that have improved health insurance coverage and access to care for thousands of Georgians who I will never meet. My work has always been through the consumer lens, and that is the focus and perspective we need in this office.
Thank you very much. Ms. Laws, now you get a 30-second rebuttal.
Sure. A special interest lobbyist does not make you an insurance expert. The insurance commissioner should have a broad-based knowledge of the insurance industry. As a licensed insurance professional for the past 16 years, I'm fully licensed in property, casualty, life, and health insurance. I have an understanding of how the insurance industry works, the plight of agents and brokers, and most importantly, what insurance consumers are dealing with. The people of Georgia deserves to have someone that truly understands
Thank you very much. Thank you. That's your
their
time.
needs. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, Ms. Zeldin, you may ask your question of Ms. Laws.
Absolutely. The Trump administration has been using the federal rulemaking process and its executive order authority to undermine some of the health insurance consumer protections that Georgians have come to rely upon. Creating loopholes for short-term, limited duration plans and association plans are just a couple of examples. Ms. Laws, can you describe your regulatory approach to these types of products and, if any, what legislation you feel may be appropriate to address this?
Sure, absolutely. As the insurance commissioner regulates insurance agencies, agents and brokers, and advocate for consumers. I do not want to oversell what the insurance commissioner can do. I will absolutely fight for Georgians to ensure that they are protected, insurance companies are held accountable, and I will work with everyone involved to bring them to the table, ask the tough questions, and make sure that you, as consumers, are protected.
Thank you very much. That will conclude. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You get the rebuttal. I apologize. Cindy.
Yeah, absolutely. So as I've been out talking to voters and consumers all around our state, I'm hearing a lot of worry and concern about the future of health insurance and whether it will be there when people need it. And it is absolutely incumbent upon our insurance commissioner to lead on these issues, and I will bring a legislative package to our General Assembly around stabilizing our health insurance marketplace and ensuring that we have consumer protections in state law, not just in federal law, so that no matter what happens in Washington, we don't go back to the days when having a pre-existing condition meant being locked out or priced out.
Thank you very much. Now, that concludes our second round. For those just joining us, this is the debate between the Democratic candidates for insurance commissioner. We're now going to go back to our panel to ask questions to the candidate of his choice until we run out of time. As a point of moderator privilege, I might also ask questions of the candidates. I'll determine if a rebuttal is appropriate. Andy Miller, you now get the first question in this round.
This question's for both of you. Auto insurance rates have skyrocketed here in Georgia over the last few years, one of the highest premium increases in the country. What would you do as insurance commissioner to make those rates more moderate in Georgia? This is for both of you. Janice, we can start with you.
Sure. You're absolutely correct. In the last few years, Georgia has been number one or number two in the country for rate hikes. Our average rate increase in Georgia is 54%, while the national average is 22%. I'm of the belief that we have legislation on the books, Senate Bill 276, that literally says no rates will be deemed excessive as long as there's sufficient competition in the market, and that is allowing insurance companies to charge as much as they want. As insurance commissioner, I will put together a repeal and replace task force to ensure that that bill gets repealed. Also, there are practices that insurance companies have that they're using credit scores as a higher rating factor than your driving record. I believe that's wrong, it's unacceptable, and I will fight for Georgians to have more affordable auto insurance rates.
Thank you very much. Dave, you now have a question.
Well, Cindy was going to.
Oh, that's right.
We're going to ask Cindy that same question.
Yeah, so Georgia consumers have been absorbing some of the highest car insurance rate increases in the nation. And while we know distracted driving and increased traffic accidents are factors in those rates, the factor I care most about and can most affect as your insurance commissioner is that there has been virtually no oversight over these rate increases. Every 6 months, you're getting hit with a higher premium. On top of that, you may be paying more because of your zip code, your credit score, and you may even be subject to price optimization, which isn't the optimal price for you, it's the optimal price for your insurance company. It's when they charge you more because they don't think you'll shop around. As your insurance commissioner, I'll work to address these practices and work with the legislature to restore prior approval authority so that the insurance commissioner can address unreasonable rate proposals. And I'll improve transparency by holding hearings and creating a process for public input. Thank you.
Dave, now you have a question for one or both of the candidates.
I'd like to address this to both candidates. Let's move on now past auto insurance to health insurance premiums. Those continue to rise by tremendous amounts in Georgia. At the same time, another trend that's disturbing is we see less competition, particularly in rural Georgia, with insurers pulling out of the market, leaving sometimes one company as the sole option. Well, I guess we'll start with Cindy. How would you address those issues?
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. In 145 counties in Georgia, there's only one insurance carrier. And so I believe we need a market stabilization plan for our state that will provide some consistency and some stability to the market that will help get more carriers into Georgia and provide the choice and competition that consumers need. One way we can do that is by looking at reinsurance. Many states are going down this path. Alaska's the most well-known, and it's working really well for them. So that's a best practice we can draw upon. Second, I believe we need to really look at regulating these short-term plans that may be coming back into the market that don't provide the types of consumer protections that people rely on because they have the potential to segment the market and provide more chaos there. And third, I believe we ought to look at Medicaid expansion. And I plan to encourage our legislature and our governor to move forward with Medicaid expansion because that is also shown to improve insurance markets in states that have gone down that path.
Thank you very much, Ms. Laws. Your answer to that question.
Could you repeat the question?
Basically, a couple of trends, the health insurance premiums that continue to skyrocket in Georgia year after year, how to address that, along with, at the same time, the lack of competition as insurers, particularly in the rural parts of the state, pull out of the market.
Yeah. As stated earlier, one of the number one ways that the insurance commissioner can impact that is by allowing more insurance providers in our state. As you just stated, some counties have one individual health plan, some counties have no health plan. We have not had a consumer-friendly insurance commissioner that's been working on behalf of Georgians. As your next insurance commissioner, I will work to ensure that we have sufficient providers. We've already been doing research in various states that we found companies and models that are working all across the country that are not here in Georgia, and that's what we need. As insurance commissioner, I will do just that.
I have a question for the candidates. Both of you ladies said before we began the debate that this is your first run for public office. And I'm curious to know, and I bet our voters would like to know also, what made you want to run first for public office, two statewide, and why insurance commissioner? And I'll start with you, Ms. Laws.
For me, I have been in the industry for 16 years. I've worked with Georgia consumers just like you. And I've heard the calls. I've gotten the calls from my customers saying, Janice, why is my car insurance rate so high? Why every 6 months my rates are skyrocketing? And I got fed up. I got tired of telling them there's nothing I can do, because there is something I can do, and that is run for insurance commissioner and fight at the state level. And so I'm here because I'm committed to making a difference for Georgia citizens.
Thank you very much. Cindy.
The Insurance Commissioner's Office is a consumer protection, education, and advocacy organization. This office is here for consumers to make sure that they're treated fairly by their insurance companies And in my work as a consumer advocate, I've been very involved in legislation and regulation affecting health insurance consumers for many years. And I've seen the important role of this office. And I believe it's been underutilized for consumers, and that consumers are paying too much and don't have the choices they need when it comes to both car insurance and health insurance. And that reforming this office to protect consumers is what is needed, and that I have the skill set to serve in this office. And so I decided to step up and put my record before the voters of Georgia.
All right, thank you very much. Andy, you have a question for our candidates.
I do. The Insurance Commissioner office has been criticized over the years for being too cozy with the industry, and that may come through political contributions, et cetera, from executives within the industry. I want to ask each of you if you believe that that's true, and if so, tell me about what your feeling is about fixing that, if it needs fixing.
Ms. Zeldin, we'll begin with you.
Yeah, so you are correct that the Insurance Commissioner's office does really provide a lot of deference, give a lot of deference to the big insurance companies. And we have seen under many years of Republican leadership in this office that the commissioners have received contributions primarily from people who work in the industry, and I believe that does affect the approach that is taken and the perspective that they bring to the office. I'm proud to be building a strong base of support so that I can bring a consumer perspective to this office and make sure that it works for the consumers of our state, for all of you. And I believe we do need to restore this balance, and that it's been too far in the direction of the big insurance companies and needs to be moved more in the direction of consumers.
Janice Laws, do you agree with the question that the insurance commissioner has been entirely too cozy with the industry?
Absolutely. The Republicans have definitely been too cozy with insurance companies. And I, as an insurance professional, I do believe that that is unacceptable. And I would not take any support from insurance companies towards my campaign. I've gotten support from consumers just like you and people all over Georgia that's supporting my grassroots campaign. Thank you.
Dave, you have a question for our candidates.
Yes, for both candidates. Ms. Zeldin touched a few minutes ago on Medicaid expansion. You said that's something you would push for the General Assembly to do. In light of the Republican majorities in both houses of the General Assembly, and their, so far, very staunch opposition to Medicaid expansion, would you be willing to support some kind of an alternative like the Georgia Chamber of Commerce has talked about, which things like block grants, waivers that would not necessarily be the full expansion that some states have done, but would be more than's being done now? Again, that's for both candidates.
We'll start with you, Ms. Laws.
As insurance commissioner, I will work with the Assembly to ensure that we do whatever it takes to make sure Georgians are protected. And I am willing to explore alternative models to ensure that our consumers are protected and fight for families. Because I believe the reason why we've not had the protection that is needed is because of politics. People are busy playing politics, and I'm not here to play politics. I'm here to do what's right for Georgians and to make sure that we have the proper protection in our state, and explore various options to fulfill on that vision.
Ms. Zeldin.
About 240,000 Georgians are stuck in what has become known as the coverage gap. I've talked to many of these people over the last 5 years. They are caregivers, students, people who work in food service, childcare, and other jobs that don't come with health insurance and that pay too little to make private coverage a realistic option. As a result, they aren't getting the care that they need. Our hospitals aren't getting the reimbursement that they need. And in rural areas, places like Glenwood and Arlington and Folkestone, our hospitals have closed, and our local economies are suffering as a result. Georgia taxpayers are already paying for Medicaid expansion in places like California, Ohio, and New York. We are missing out on $8 million a day here in Georgia that could go into our healthcare system. This failure of leadership is also driving up premiums in our individual market as well. So I believe everything should be on the table, and I'll work with the General Assembly to look at these models and make sure that we get this done here.
Thank you very much. Andy, you have a question?
We recently had a contract dispute between Piedmont Healthcare and Blue Cross and Blue Shield of Georgia. Is there anything an insurance commissioner can do or the insurance department can do to protect consumers in such contract battles? I'll ask each of you that question.
Ms. Zeldin, we'll let you start with that question, please.
Yeah, and you know, I got a phone call from a friend when the Blue Cross and Piedmont standstill was going on, and after the contract had passed, and she has rheumatoid arthritis and gets her infusions at Piedmont, and she was worried, and people all over our state were worried. And the insurance commissioner and the governor both had a role to play, and both have a role to play in contract disputes like this because they have the obligation to protect the consumers of our state. And there are points of leverage. For example, should this type of contract change mid-contract when consumers don't have the option to opt out of the contract, should that trigger a special enrollment period so that consumers can choose a new plan if there's one available? Those are points of leverage that the insurance commissioner and the governor could and should, and I believe did bring to the table in this dispute. And I expect that we will see more of these types of contract disputes, and the insurance commissioner has a very critical role to play in protecting consumers.
Thank you very much. Ms. Laws.
Yes, as insurance commissioner, I will ensure that I'm protecting the consumers of Georgia. I will use the full resources that I have available to me. I will bring everyone to the table, and I will have those conversations and make sure that that is taken care of.
For both candidates, should either of you be elected insurance commissioner for the state of Georgia, talk to us about your approach for working with what is likely to continue to be a Republican-controlled legislature. Ms. Laws, I'll ask you that first.
I believe that we need to assess. Communication is key in any situation. And I believe that bringing everyone to the table that are here to represent Georgians and having those conversations that matter, bringing to the table what's important to consumers and setting political agendas aside, putting people first is what's most important. As insurance commissioner, I will do just that. I will put people first, set politics aside, ask the tough questions, have the conversations, and work with all the stakeholders and the Republicans and everyone that is at the table to ensure that happens.
Ms. Zeldin, your approach to working with the legislature.
Yeah, and I have a lot of experience in this area. Leading a nonprofit organization that advocates for consumers at the state capitol, I have been able to build bipartisan relationships. And when we saw challenges and problems out there for consumers, we brought those to the legislature and were able to get bipartisan support for bills like improving transparency about the information that's given to consumers about the doctors and their plans. When insurance companies tried to pull out of offering child-only health insurance coverage, we put together a package and pushed getting them back into the market. And that's the type of approach that I'll bring. I'm proud that I've been appointed to Senate study committees and task forces by members of both parties and have been sought out as a consumer advocate who brings an important perspective. And I'll bring that same bipartisan approach to this office because we are all going to have to work together. And at the end of the day, we all really want to work and make sure that consumers are treated fairly.
Thank you very much for your answers to those questions. That is all the time that we have for questions. Each candidate will now have 60 seconds to deliver a closing statement. Cindy Zeldin, you get the first closing statement.
Thank you, Candace, Andy, and Dave. The insurance commissioner makes decisions every day that affect your health and your wallet. We need insurance to drive our car to work, to see a doctor when we're sick. And so it needs to be transparent, affordable, and fair. The insurance commissioner is supposed to work for you, but for too long, this office has been putting the needs of the big insurance companies and their bottom lines ahead of the needs of you and your family. It is time for new leadership in this office. I bring a strong track record of fighting for consumers and getting results, from building partnerships all across our state to help enroll Georgians in health insurance, to developing and securing the passage of one of the strongest laws in the nation, holding insurance companies accountable for the information they provide to consumers. And I've led the fight here in Georgia on Medicaid expansion. I'm Cindy Zeldin, I'm ready to lead, and I'm asking you for your vote on May 22nd for insurance commissioner so that I can work for you.
Thank you, Ms. Zeldin. And Janice Laws, it is now your turn to deliver a closing statement.
Thank you. I'm running to be your next state insurance commissioner. As a licensed insurance professional for the past 16 years, I've served thousands of Georgia families to help them understand and take care of their insurance needs. This gives me a unique perspective on how insurance companies work, the plight of agents and brokers, and most importantly, what insurance consumers are dealing with. I'm ready day one to fight for Georgians. As your next insurance commissioner, I will fight to stop the skyrocketing rate increases on auto insurance. I will fight to stop redlining in our communities. I will fight to bring affordable health insurance options to our state. As an immigrant, as a mother, as a small business owner, I understand what it is to work hard, and I will work hard for Georgians. We do not need another politician or special interest lobbyist.
Ma'am, that's time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that concludes our debate. We want to remind voters that the primary elections will be held on Tuesday, May 22nd. Early voting has begun. Our thanks to the candidates and to our panel of journalists. We'd also like to thank the Atlanta Press Club for arranging today's debate. For more information about the Atlanta Press Club and all the debates they will host this primary election season, please visit atlantapressclub.org. This debate will be archived there and on Georgia Public Broadcasting's website. That's gpb.org. I'm Candace Presley. Thanks for joining us for the Atlanta Press Club Loudermilk Young Debate Series.